So, today we're going to use factoring to solve quadratics. So remember we spent the whole chapter learning how to factor. So here's why. We need it to help us solve equations out, okay? So, we could factor this. And before we just would say factor this. We didn't have equal anything, right? What we're going to do is we want to know when it equals 0. So I know this is a quadratic, and graphically this is a parabola. And when I'm looking for when it equals 0, I'm trying to find out where does it cross the x-axis. Okay. So graphically, we would graph it and find where it crossed the x-axis. There's a way to find the zeros algebraically, and that also will help us graph quicker. And that's factoring. So how would we factor this side? Well, how are we going to get x squared? X and x. How are we going to factor 6? We can either do 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. And they're both plus, so plus plus. Are you okay with the factoring? Now, the wonderful thing about this is there's something called the zero product property. And what that means is if I multiply two things together and it equals 0, then that means either the first thing equals 0 or the second thing, equals 0, or both of them do. Because the only way you can multiply two things together and get 0 is if one of them is 0. And so can we solve these separately? So how would I solve this one for x? So x equals -3, and this one I'd -2. So x equals so on the graph, this is where the function crosses the x-axis at those 2 points. Okay. And we used our property for this was zero product property. Which says if you have two things multiplied together and they equal 0, then either A equals 0, B equals 0, or neither. That okay? And that's what we're going to be doing today. Okay. So let's do an example. Now this is nice because they're going to have it pre-factored for us on this one. So what are the solutions to this? And so for solutions, I want to know what the variable equals. Now this one they gave it to us pre-factored, which that was nice of them. So it's already pre-factored. We have two things multiplied together and it equals 0. So the zero product property tells me that either the first thing has to equal 0 or the second thing has to equal 0. And then we're going to solve them separately. Are you okay with the first step on that part? And then how do we solve this for t? -1. So 4t equals -1. Divide both sides by 4. So t equals -1/4. And what would you do on this one? Good. So t equals 2. If you want to write them together like this with a comma in between them, you can. If you want to write them t equals -1/4 and t equals 2, you can also do it that way. I don't care. And graphically, remember that this is where, these are the two places where the parabola would cross the x-axis. Okay? Okay, let's do another one. This is my favorite method to solving quadratics, actually. So what are the solutions to this? Now they're going to make us factor it. And in one way I know I'm looking for the solutions is because it equals 0. Yep, so put our two sets of parentheses. And to get x squared, it's x and an x. How do we factor 15?
Should do 5 and
3, why 3 and 5?
equals 15.
Multiplies to give 15 and equals 8 in the middle. And they're both plus, because both of these are plus. Yeah, then we use zero product properties. So we say that x plus 3 equals 0, or x plus 5 equals 0. So what's this one give us? What do we do here? Good. So x equals -3. And there's your two answers. Is that okay?
Yes.
Cool. You gotta work this one just a little. Because what do I really want this thing to equal? 0. We really want it to equal 0. So we're going to minus the 18. Now, am I allowed, Anthony, to minus the 18 from anything over here, or do I just have to add it to the end of the equation? Just add it to the end, yeah. Nick, is there anything that can factor out of these three terms? Do any of these have a number in common? No, they don't. Okay. So now we're going to have to work this one just a little bit. Because how many ways are there to factor 4? There's 2 ways to do it. Which 2 do you want to try first? 2 and 2. Okay. Oops. And now let's look at our 18. 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. Which one do we want to try first? 3 and 6? And this back number is a minus, so it's either plus, minus, or minus 6. Okay, what do we got to do? We got to check it. We don't know if we're right yet. So 2x times 2x? What's that give me? Minus 12x? That's plus 6x. Is that going to work? Not going to work. So switch them?
Yeah.
So make this a 6 and this a 3? That just makes it a minus 6 and a plus 12. Okay, so that didn't work. So let's try 2 and 9? Let's try that one. So we know the first 2 is going to give us a 4x squared. What about here and here? Oh, we're getting closer to 21. But that's going to be a plus 4x. That's not going to work. So I would suggest right now abandoning the 2 and the 2. Let's go to 4 and 1. Okay? Now what do we want to try? The 1 and 18, the 2 and 9, or 3 and the 6? We can go 3 and 6. Which one do you want minus? So 4x times 1x. 4x times a minus 6. 3 times 1? Ah, minus 24 plus 3. What's that give us?
21.
Is that what we wanted? Yep. So this is the right one. Okay, so now that we actually have the right one factored, now we can use the zero product property. So 4x plus 3 equals 0, or 1x minus 6 equals 0. Minus 3. right here. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good. Other one.
Divide by 4. So x equals negative 3/4. What about this one? Not negative. Positive 6. There's your 2 answers. Oopsies. Is that okay? So it's kind of bringing stuff back. Okay.
I want to make sure I have all this down.
Okay. Yeah, take the pass. Okay. Okay, we got one more example. Did you need this? It's a story problem.
Yeah.
Why do they exist?
Because that's life. Life is a story problem. Okay. So example 4. So we have a picture frame. We have a picture, and they tell us the picture is 17 inches by 11 inches. And we want the width of the frame to be the same all the way around. And we want the total area to be 315. Okay. So I need to see what this total length is right here. I know from here to here is 17. But how much is this and how much is this? What do we call it? X. So we have 17 plus we have x on one side plus we have x on another side. So what is that really? 17 plus, not x squared, we're not multiplying. 2x, very good. So that's your width. Then we're going to do the same thing along the length. I know from here to here is 11 inches. Plus I have an x on this side and an x on this side, so plus 2x. Can't divide by 2. So they tell us what the total area is. So how would I find the area if I know this is the length and this is the width? Multiplying. So right now I know that this times this should equal 315. Is that okay? So in order to solve this, I really need it to equal what? 0. So we need to distribute this out and then move the 315 over. So what's 11 times 17? I don't know. I'll get a calculator out.
187.
Is it? Cool. And then 11 times 2x? And then 2x times 17?
34x.
And then 2x times 2x. So can we simplify this side? And I'm going to write it in the right order. So what has to come first? The squared, right? So 4x squared. And then I have 22x plus 34x. 56? Are we okay to there? Now what do we want this to equal?
0.
So can we move the 315 over? From the 3 or 187, yep.
Negative
Yep. Now, if you can take a number out of all three of these, all means do it. I know we can definitely take a 2 out. So let's divide everything by 2.
We can also do 4.
Yep, I'm going to show you. Yeah. If you see the 4, do it right away. But do you notice I also divided this side by 2? Because if you divide one thing by 2, you have to divide everything by 2, right? Oh, can we also take another 2 out? So x squared plus 14x minus 32 equals 0. Now we're in the business. Now this is going to be better to solve. Where are you at? Huh? Well, it's just divided by 2. Now can we factor it?
Yes.
So x squared. So 32. 1 and 32. 2 and 16. Yeah, because 2 and 16 will make a... And I want the 14 to be positive, so is the 2 positive or the 16 positive? The 16 is positive. The bigger one's positive. I know this is right, so I'm just going to forego that step. So now we have it equals 0, so what are we going to do? No.
0.
0.
Oh, you gotta do associative.
0.
Positive 2.
What are you doing? What's the property name?
0 product property.
Ah, we're going to use 0 product property, which says that x minus 2 equals 0 or x plus 16 equals 0.
So then x equals positive 2.
Or,
Negative 2.
no, what's this one give you?
Negative 16.
Now we're talking about a story problem. Is the frame going to be negative 16 inches?
No.
So what's the frame?
2.
We're going to use this one. Is that okay? Okay. So, that's it for my lesson.
That was took a long time. Only give us one of those.
Okay, there's your homework. Yeah, it takes pass.